The chairman and leader of the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, NURP, has called on all Sierra Leoneans, both at home and abroad, to unite in building a coalition nation, emphasizing the urgent need for national unity and urging all 18 tribes, ethnic groups, and 17 registered political parties to work together in fostering political cooperation, democratic consolidation, and economic prosperity for all citizens, regardless of political affiliation, ethnicity, region, or social status. Dr. Jonathan Sandy is the chairman and leader of the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, and he's with us in the studios this morning to talk on these all-important issues highlighted on that intro. Dr. Sandy, it's a pleasure having you as always in our studios.
Yes, it's a pleasure. It's been a while, and thanks again. And let me take this opportunity to wish ourselves in the studio and the people of Sierra Leone Eid Mubarak.
That's a well-packed intro. But quite recently, I noticed you were in the provinces, had a lot of engagements. I saw you on some radio discussions, on social media, among other things. But again, just help us understand, was that the genesis of what we're here to talk about?
Yeah, there are two things here. One, we took the time to go. I've been away.
Sure.
After the controversial 2023 election, I've been away. Me and my party decided to be quiet. And I went, as usual. I have a split life, both technical life and political life, national politics. So I went back to work. Because usually I tell people I am not in politics, national politics, for wealth accumulation. I am there with a moral philosophy and ethics with my party to see how we can consolidate the gains we had made for moving Sierra Leone from war to peace to recovery to sustainable development. That is the transformation part. I remember very well my last talk with His Excellency Meso, both of them, those who I worked with closely, as Chief of Staff and National Security Advisor, late President Tijan Kaba and Solomon Berwa. And one of the things they emphasized before they leave, and Bishop Hompa, who was the godfather of the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, everybody know that he was part of me and my team. The last thing they were saying that you guys, with the institutional memory of how we moved Sierra Leone from war to peace, to recovery, and peace consolidation and post-war reconstruction, please, it seems that we're in a dilemma how to move from post-war reconstruction to sustainable development. That's prosperity for every Sierra Leonean. That's the dilemma there. And part of those recommendations, how do we, Sierra Leoneans, how do we move our nation from war to peace and recovery in terms of the sustaining the conflict transformation part, they are much more entrenched in the TRC report, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. It's outlined clearly the root causes of the war, and then what are the 8 key priority recommendations we should move our nation before. Unfortunately, we have been able to move in few areas, but I think we have more to do in terms of consolidating, particularly democracy, democratic culture, which is where we see that from 1967, 66, 67, which after colonialism, when we gained independence, the 1-2 elections we had in the 60s, which are enshrined in the TRC report, were divided into Mandela versus Stimley line political party systems. That is the emergence of the APC out of the SLPP. And since that struggle, remember in the 70s, I'm sure, there are people here, I don't want to name them, but they were not even on earth by the 70s and early 70s when some of the SLPP people were arrested and sent to Mafanta prisons. And some of them were Panemba Road. You hear about names like Manapaka. Those ones stood for the identity that I would die for the SLPP up to my grave. Many of them were there. They went to, even Charles Magai was arrested in the 70s and thrown to Panemba Road. So those history are there to the extent that by 1978, we came to a referendum where we had a one-party state. And then after, the APC ruled under one-party state for 24 more years. And then what we had a disaster. We saw a lot of marginalization, exclusion, corruption, bad governance. And at the end of the day, we went into war. Now, why do we think the moment, as you say, we were celebrating or commemorating this, we are going up country, it was to mark the day, March 23rd, when the war really started in Sierra Leone. As I say, the background, we had some of those root causes, but we tend to forget that how did we get to March 23rd, 1991, when we saw the RAF from the border, the Revolutionary United Front, ushered in Sierra Leone. And by then we were in Frabe College. I think we were in that some years back. But it was a terrible moment. But you can't believe that it was a joyful moment as well. We thought that as students, as always, as they are excited when revolutionary movements start. And in the morning, I saw under my bed, by then I was president of the Siniku Hall. I was alone in my room. I just saw flyers around in my room, and everybody was saying, what is this? That was the start of the revolution. And then we went through that. What did we see? The consequence of 50,000 or more people were killed, the maiming and amputation of people, and as I speak, sexually abused women during the war, grafting, you can go to graft, you have many of them, Kenema, Bo, Falabako, and Adugo, and they are there. And it is sad that most of the consequences, even the youths, the young girls and women are now part of that consequences are still around. So on the basis of that, we thought it is important, based on the principle and the political ideology of national reconciliation, we should always be remembering people. So that's one. March 23rd, we are still campaigning, advocating for Sierra Leoneans to always remember where we are coming from, the negative past, and how do we move towards the positive future. Number two, this is the, I work for the AU and the UN as well. The African Union every year has a team which member states, the 54 to 55 member states should adhere to and see how we can promote the principles and shared values of the African Union, especially in terms of solidarity. So the theme for this year is this justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparation, the word reparation. So therefore, what is this all about? Justice for Africans and people of African descent. People think about slave trade, colonialism, imperialism, and that's what and how do we advocate for compensation for our brothers and sisters who have moved towards the slave trade and suffered, whether in the Caribbean or whatever they are. But we also, I was in the African Union 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I said, yes, this concept, this theme is fine for the year. As much as we look at the international global dimension, the geopolitics of our brothers and sisters who suffered 1 or 2 centuries ago because of slave trade, colonialism, and that. But the reality is, Africa currently is full of conflict. And many of these conflicts, whether terrorism, interstate conflict, or rebellion, we have victims of war, whether they were amputated and they were killed and they are still alive. And can we also think about localizing that call for reparation and justice? Take my country, Sierra Leone. Our party, the National Unity Party and Reconciliation, the word reconciliation is about asking ourselves, are the victims of the war, are they in a better situation today or worse off? And that is where we thought that linking the African Union Team of the Year and to remind both the African Union, the ECOWAS, the Commonwealth, and the UN that they were moral guarantors, the international moral guarantors of our peace process. And then also to bring it to our local situation.
Dr. Sandy, just last week, I think it was on the 24th, we hosted a member from the REFP. And a lot was said.
Yes.
But again, do you think the revolution was indeed a just one? The revolution, aside from the atrocities that were caused, the reason behind the revolution, do you think they were just?
The point is let us don't forget, we are all students of history. and history make where we are. That's why we keep saying the values and the principles we share in the National Unity and Reconciliation Party is to think about those nasty or negative past. We should not forget, these things started like student union pressure groups. Remember, I don't know how many scholars like you or journalists or media people have really documented the role of the media, journalism, and students in promoting democracy as well as reflection of the world. Most of you, some of us who at our ages were part of that struggle, saw what, for example, her mother, her uncle, the whole Faure family, Democrat. Some of them were even being killed. I remember my uncle, Uncle Pius Faure, who is my uncle, John. These are my own blood. The Faures are the Sandys are the same lineage from the same village. So we have seen the role of student union presidency, pressure group. When Pius and others were in Faure College, they had a tablet. They started, I mean, I don't want to go into student union politics, but you know what I'm saying. Sure. Whether it's radicals or that side, I was also part of that struggle. And therefore, the Green Revolution book came. And people are excited after 24 years of bad governance, corruption, and then gross human rights violation. Journalists and media people were thrown. There was no press freedom. They were hiding. A lot of them left for the US and many and sought asylum. Yet, what can we do? And that's where it started. In Jala, in Faure College, meeting Magan, and everywhere. They came together. And then this is where the revolution started. So, to say whether it was just, of course, there were root causes to rebellion was other. We had at that time in Africa up to 2001, 21 intrastate conflict as a lot of rebel movement. And then we had 3 interstate conflict, which was the Bakassi Peninsula between Nigeria and Cameroon. And then we have the Electoral and the Ethiopia crisis. But so far, we saw a lot of revolutionary movement, whether it was the days of the African National Congress, the ANC, the Renamo versus Frelimo. We also saw Savimbi, we saw ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe. Mm-hmm. So that was the trend. So to say at that point, after one-party state for 24 years and the atrocities they have, that the revolution, yes, although it was premeditated. Everyone say it was from Liberia to here. But it was a wing of change. From Liberia, we saw the MPFL, and then gradually it spread over to Sierra Leone. But the question we should be asking ourselves whether it was just. We know that there were a lot of atrocities associated with that. But also, the question is, how do we say never again? How do we say never again that we should go? Are we seeing the signs? Are we seeing the symptoms or the root causes manifesting themselves? This is why we are saying, well, if in Africa, most of the root causes of conflict now in Africa have changed pattern. It's not really about terrorism, but identity politics, tribal and regional politics, in terms of electoral competition amongst tribes, is the root causes of conflict now in Africa, crisis. As we speak, you've seen what is going on in South Sudan. I was there, I worked there for the last 2 years, and the Vice President, Riek Machar, Dr. Riek Machar, is under house arrest because his own tribe, the NURP, are now sitting that they mobilized their own militias and rebel movement, they are still there. And then the Dinkas, who are the President Salva Kiir. So there is an identity conflict between the NURP and the Dinkas. Why? Because election is coming 2026. So this political space, how you organize tribal, and they have the Acholi. It's a very interesting model we need to look at South Sudan because they have 4 to 5 vice presidents from different tribes. And then you have the president, Salva Kiir. The first vice president is Riek Machar, Dr. Riek Machar, who is from the second highest ethnic group, that's the NURP. And then you have the Acholi, which are close also to Uganda border. You have the Acholi tribe. They are also part of on the border communities. But they have there Madam Rebecca Garan, who was wife of John Garan, also is the vice president. So it's an interest that been stabilized for the 3, 4, 5 years from 2018. So I've been preaching that this is a good model because I helped them to transition the 2018 revitalized peace agreement into what we call One South Sudan peace building strategic framework, which we are pushing. I was anchored with the Minister of Peace Building in the Ministry of Peace Building for 2 years, mentoring and coaching the staff and bringing that process, translating peace agreement to real concrete implementable action. So we saw it was moving, but the dilemma has always been DDR has always like it's failed in Sierra Leone at some point, disarmament, because nobody wants to disarm its own tribal identity. Like we used to have this, we were lucky, we were able to bring all the tribal militias into civil defense force. So that's another model we'll talk about someday.
Dr. Sandy, let's tie this up and bring it back home to the context of Sierra Leone. The tribal issues we do have in Sierra Leone are merely political. It's the APC and the SLPP issues. On a normal day, beyond the politics, that again has to do with the APC and the SLPP, you don't have incident reports of tribal activities in Sierra Leone leading to chaos. It's merely political. And we tend to see that both the APC and the SLPP, even though many a times they're at each other's throat, when it comes to issues that benefit them, they're actually bodies. Whether it's the MPs in Parliament tying up to seek their welfare or passing something that benefits them, or it's the APC and the SLPP sitting on tripartite committee deciding on what works best for them. So our problem is merely APC and SLPP, not the rest of Sierra Leone. But we tend to allow the APC and SLPP to, as small as their number put together is, when you juxtapose that to the population of Sierra Leone, to affect the rest of mankind. So if you're saying now building national coalition, how do you propose this to work when these two parties have sort of captured Sierra Leone?
Now, when it's a very good question, Phoebe, and I think you hit the nail. And I get the premise of the 1967. Up to now, our political culture needs to change. People ask me, what is the situation? Doc, you work in Somalia for 5, 6 years. I was the head of the Somalia mission in the UN there. I simply tell people it's clash of civilization. The people then say they don't want their Ummah, they're not classical Muslims, Islamic agenda, what we call Salafis. They say they don't want their girls, gender equality is what they were against. That's human rights and the international. But that said, in Sierra Leone, they say, what is the fundamental problem? And that's what Phoebe and you are saying. The fundamental problem, in my view, and that is why my own friends and colleagues, which you know, even my late uncle was living after me, say, why are you still with this national unity and reconciliation when your umbilical cord, you are Sandy, you are Fore, is tied to one of these identity political parties? I say, no, we need to change. Even if we don't succeed, and that is why all of us who went through Fube College, the motto is non-CBIT said at least, or University of Sierra Leone in
What's
general.
the possibility, Dr. Sandy, of changing this narrative when the people, you find that majority of the people tend to tie themselves to sympathize with either of these parties.
Yes.
When the APC does something wrong and you point it out, the APC people come at you and say, you're pointing their wrongs out because you're SLPP. When you do the same with SLPP, those who sympathize come and point you out to say, oh, you're calling them out because you're APC. The people, majority, hardly sit back to say, regardless of whether I support the APC or the SLPP, I should be able to look at what they're doing and judge it to see if it is affecting the country negatively or positively, and call them out in the interest of everyone else. The people at this who should be holding these politicians accountable and not let them continue to fan the flames of divide and chaos in the country are the same ones protecting the politicians that we should be shaming and bringing to book.
The point is, when did we get here? Fabian. It's only from 2007. In our generational transformation, from 1996, when multi-party democracy ushered in, remember we had 20-something political parties. That first election, even Madam Zainab Bangura was a female candidate, UP party. I don't know if a lot. Desmond Luke, NUM, many of them. Abbas Bundu had his own party, PPP. Now, we saw how my institutional memory is that, or let's call it matter short. I think the way forward is one. We have an opportunity with the agreement of national unity, where certain resolutions have been provided for, particularly Resolution 5. It says we political parties, because we're all guilty as political elites, or let me just say political elites. Say elites, academics, journalists, media. We are the people who predate on the people. Because where we know politically, 65 to 70% of our people are politically, what we call political education. They lack that. So we tend to predate on them for wealth accumulation. When do we start to say, when we're in politics, it's for the moral values. It's what Tijan Kaba, Dr. James Jonah, people like Pius Fore, and many of them did, not for self but for others. They died for democracy. They've suffered for democracy. Many of those people like many of them. So how do we make sure that, for example, from 2007 now, we introduce money and politics with a by-election? That's one problem. With a buy, you buy money and politics. I go to some communities, when I'm campaigning, people say, this is not like Tijan Kabane money, it's from the UN. That's not it, because it's not part of my moral values. T-shirt, alcohol, jamba, or kush. No, I don't do that. My religion does not even allow me that. But I think the way forward is one. We have the opportunity now to bring back the constitutional review and referendum process. I am very hopeful. We should not be doing it in a corner. Maybe we will discuss this at some, because we are launching a project next week called The Answer. I'll advocate for a new Sierra Leone. And what do we want to do is to really preempt those things, to move 4 key thematic areas. One, the constitutional review and referendum process. We are not going to leave it like that. Nobody is going to do it top-bottom approach. And I want journalists and others to open their eyes on that. What is the approach, the process of reviewing and completing the constitutional review and sending it to referendum? If as we speak, I just saw one of the newspapers, a referendum 2025. From my experience, practical, not theory, I said to myself, do we even have a referendum act of parliament, a bill? And the last referendum act we had was 1978. So how are we going to educate people that to do a referendum against because there are enshrined clauses in that constitution, and the Tripartite report, for example, as you said, out of the 84 recommendations, I can tell you almost 65 to 70 are related to reviewing the national constitution. So we have to be very careful. People can use that part again to smuggle, and back we go into identity. So we want to make sure that we focus on the constitutional review process. Then number 2, in the resolution 5, we have said, how do Sierra Leoneans, we as politicians, small political parties, big, advocate for public financing of political parties? This is very important, Sylvia, because I can tell you the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, yes, it's a group of Sierra Leoneans that established it, but we need to conceptualize what are political parties. Is it the Forest and the Sandys that own NURP? Is it the Charles Magais that own the PMDC? Is it Temo Bangura, late, may so blessed, so own the PDP? Is it Kane Yonkela, though you have left now, is it the owner of NGC? So that even the nature of how we design our politics, where we think individuals own political party, is problematic. So what we have been discussed with both APC and SLPP through the PPRC, the South Africans were here, they took us into a conference, where they said they showed all the models of how to fund political parties. Because we should be asking ourselves, Fabian, what are political parties? Are they private sector institutions? Are they media? Are they civil society? Are they NGO? Or are they integral component of the public sector governance? So if we settle for that, then we can find a way that no, because this is what APC and SLPP do to exclude the other parties. So because what is happening is it's about funding. Because if we want to do multi-party democracy, I'm coming. This is serious. Sierra Leone is a signatory to the African Union Charter on Democracy, Elections and Good Governance. Article 3 says all member states, if you want to promote political pluralism, you should make sure whether parties are in the opposition and that they have administrative support, and not campaigning.
And this, Dr. Sandy, it draws me to a line in your, of course, your recent engagement, which says to unite in building a coalition nation. Just recently, there was this unity agreement, the Tripartite recommendations, for which at some point in time I know you were one of many Sierra Leoneans who were very much vociferous as to the manner at which the body itself was constituted, leaving behind many other political parties, among many other things. But again, how will this be achieved when in actual fact there are still many problems that are yet to be amended in terms of even us having a coalition nation?
This is what I'm saying. For us, you know, in national security, we are trained to look at the threat and the risk, and then how do we respond to that? And I've said one of the paths towards that is to really, not political part, because constitutional review and referendum part, my brother, is not just about political parties. We should be watchful that if we want to change a new Sierra Leone. But the point I'm saying that to build a coalition nation, one of the things, there are two ways we can do this. The current political parties, we have about existing 15 to 16 now, maybe C4C will come back to line. But I'm saying is that the RUF, for example, you said they were here.
Sure.
The RUF, I was part of the Lome preparation, the background. Now, what happened is the model we have for the opportunity cost in those days for rebel movement to leave their guns is to encourage them to transition from rebel movement to political parties. And then they can participate in election. The question is, since Lome, I'm sure the RAF mentioned that to you, has government been providing administrative and subvention for them to function like the ANC and the Renamo and other? No. The same APC and SLB, then greedy. They go to parliament. PPRC prepared an act of parliament before 2023 and said we should provide administrative support to create the level playing field for political parties. They took it out in parliament. They said, no, the party then took back. No. A country where we have 18 tribes, the reason why you fund political parties, if you look at our national constitution, section 35(1), if you go there now, you will see that the roles and responsibility and mandate of political parties are outlined there. There are three. One, say a group of Sierra Leoneans can come together to establish a political party so that they can help to shape the will of the people, the will of the people. Then second, they should also help to disseminate ideas that can influence socio-economic character. The last aspect in that section 35, where if you are looking at, it's where political parties have the responsibility to manage candidate nomination process for local government, members of parliament, and presidential. But everybody in Sierra Leone tend to focus on the last aspect. Now, for example, the last 2 years, you will see that shaping the will of the people. This is what you invited me to do. How do we promote, how do we advocate for a national reparation policy for the victims of war? How this is shaping the will. How do we change the political culture from Mandela versus Timberline? It is very serious, as you say, it's political, but it's also institutionalized. That's the danger ahead of 2028 or ahead of the referendum. Because ministry, department, and agencies, even the private sector, Fabian, you go to most ministries, department, agencies, when you come to selection and recruitment process, it has, for the last 2 decades, it has been based on surnames. They can tell you, go to the police, the military, people are saying it. And when, for example, we are selecting and recruiting and leading in the ONS, we look at region and tribal balance, we set the criteria. But now, the design of our institutions, democratic institutions, it's not only political, but technically, they're in trouble. Right now, if elections come today, and then the dilemma we have now is that if the SLPP lose, for example, some people are sitting now into ministry, department, commission, especially not only political appointees, because those ones they can go, not only cabinet, but the challenge is we have been sitting back, we don't advertise jobs. It has pleased this, we just give you the job. Go and watch Usai the other person day, and then you go and give the job without competitive, merit-based competition. That is what I'm saying is one way to go through this one. We need the public sector and civil service reform, including the defense and security sector reform, should be based on merits and competency, competition. Take the Chief Justice. In Kenya, the Chief Justice, before me, Kojuka is advertised, the panel like we are sitting, you interview, like how you guys know how to fire. The candidates will come, shortlisted. People do telephone when you interview them based on checklist of questions. Then people do telephone calls and ask, but they can bring even your vetting. You don't do you gross human rights, you don't do rape, you don't do that. It comes to the ear. You vet them publicly. Then what they do in Kenya, after that interview, wild TV interview, then they shortlist maybe 3 and submit to His Excellency. When they submit, then the president has now the right to nominate who he wants and send to Parliament. But our selection and recruitment process has been mad with those things. That's why when we talk about regionalism and tribalism, it's politics, but it's also technical, and it's been institutionalized into our ministry, department, and agencies. And that is bad. Nepotism is also becoming typical. You will see certain surnames all over the place. What I'm saying is, what is wrong in our constitution, if we are reviewing the constitution, in the preamble, we should make sure that if we are designing our ministries, our departments, and agencies, we should be sensitive to regional and tribal balance. It should be there in the preamble. That is what we are promoting. So we don't want the constitution to go. Even our public acts of parliament, they should make sure it is competitive. Look at the ECSL. When they want to compose the ECSL, or the PPR, say, are we advertising the chief electoral? No. The criteria in other country jurisdiction, in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, you will see that for you to become a commissioner of any of the commissions, whether it is the electoral management bodies, the police or this, it is in the constitution they said your qualification, the number of years of experience, and which kind of thing we are looking for. Here, nobody consulted, just pick and say, no, go to Parliament, this is who I've nominated. And that is the source of the tribal and regional dimension that is causing the tension between our cohesiveness. And therefore, we need to be very careful. And that is why you see, as we head for 2028, the dilemma is. When you saw the outcome of 2023 is the same. So do we want to go to that situation where we do not organize ourselves into merit-based and competitive-based institutions in terms of democratic governance? That's the challenge. And therefore, I think that 1, we should be advertising jobs. Number 2, let's go through the constitution and devise all those core principles there. Then number 3, we make sure that we fund our political parties, at least administratively. Then the Auditor General has the responsibility to go and audit my party, other parties. If we have found one thing, we go to ACC. And then you deregister that party, say that party is not promoting the will of the people, it's not meeting its constitutional mandate. For example, why should I, as chairman and leader of NURP, which is a public sector institution, NURP, why should I be paying to come to the media, I have to spend my own personal money. That's the point I'm saying. And I'm here not to promote my family business. I'm not in the private sector. I was elected at a convention by the party members. And PPRC was there, the press was there. But at the end of the day, the small money I go to work outside, that's what I'm spending for pay office rent. And now I can tell you 2 or 3 of our office rents are expired. So when I'm back home, the regional chairman, the chairman are calling the women's party office and don't. So that's my personal money. Is it fair to my family? Is it fair to the people I come? So why don't we, if we want to promote multi-party democracy and for ensure that it forms the basis of consolidated our democracy and economic prosperity for all, why can't we fund them? Let me tell you what is important as well. I can tell you, if you provide even $10,000 for the 15 political parties, that's $150,000 per year for them pay their rent, or 20 at that. You will tell me most of the electoral competition among tribes will be passed because everybody will stay in your region. Politics is about representation. There is no tribalism in voting. Now, representation. I often say you can never be a king without the kingdom. You can never be a king without...
You say there's no tribalism in voting?
Yeah, what I'm saying is people rush our people, the mindset, because it is about money. But I'm saying is, if, for example, the Sosos before now, let's take it, the Sosos, take 2018 election. Who was their candidate? Let's put it blank. This is how we do political analysis, deep analysis. It's about representation. Kanda Young Keller, everybody in Cambia, we know Cambia district, the majority tribe, they're across the border, are the Sosos. The Limbas and Tonko Limba in the 2, there are 6 constituencies in Cambia district. 4 were won where the Sosos are predominant. That's Kanda Young Keller and his brothers. The NGC won 4 and APC won 2. The SLPP know it's a something, they didn't win anything. That's how you give deeper analysis.
And that's the same for
take
the
Kono, take C4C,
the North and Eastern region.
Take C4C, Kono, 2018. What happened? When Sansumana, we went and hashed the Accra agenda. If he's listening to me, we know. To block a swing state, get their own. That's how we did. Get their own. C4C and my party registered the same. And then we wanted the interests of minority groups and ethnic groups. So C4C went there, and we were asked to pull out NURP, leave it in terms of coalition building, and then C4C feed all the candidates, local government, member of parliament, and presidential. What happened? The outcome. There are 9 constituencies there. C4C won 8 because the Konos wanted a representation of their own in parliament. The local council, they won. The mayor of Kwedu City was also won by C4C. They saw Sumana as their own. So it's about representation. The Sosos did say why Sumana had its own support base, the former vice president, and then the Soso also have that. That's Kono. I did not do well because I will never be a king if these people don't vote for me. Representation, Bo, Kenema, this. And then you have the ability to reach out to the Creole, the Limbas, and that. So this is natural. Why everybody is saying, if you check now, most people who are shouting around for my brother and friend, former Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Finance, Dr. Samura Kamara, you will check the typology of those behind him who do not want him to go are from the same Karine, Bombali, and others where he hailed from. They say this is their own. You cannot lie. Practical Lumumba will say, Professor Lumumba will say, Africans celebrate their own, whether they are own thieves. We saw what happened in McKinney when our former president came, Magbangba come on. When anti-corruption wanted to go there. So the mindset of the people are, so how do we demystify that? Let all man get in own to the budget allocation, fund the political parties, then everybody is forced to mobilize his own community, his own villages, his own area to come to the center. Then that's how we build coalition. You negotiate. Kenya is working. They do pre-coalition before they go into elect. Then you have two coalition system. Kenya Kwanza is ruling now. That is United Kenya and Swahili. That's William Ruto is winning now. But Mudavadi, the vice president, has his own party from the Kalenji people. So they build a coalition, and then Raila Odinga Matakarua, with their own Azamua coalition, they hang heads. Only 2 or 3 political candidates.
What you propose, Dr. Sandy, if what you propose comes to effect, it means the APC and the SLPP would have that coalition as an opposition to both of them. And you have those on standby in the APC and the SLPP aiming at the flag bearer position to become the next president of Sierra Leone. So those two older political parties in the country automatically become an opposition, or this coalition becomes an opposition to them, making it nearly impossible to succeed.
What I'm saying, the other thing we should be talking about, my dear niece, is that about funding the political parties. And then, this is why...
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
This is why...
Once it becomes a reality, it's making them less powerful. And
no,
the APC and the SLPP
even now, see what they have done. In the Tripartite team, we were excluded. The Tripartite were excluded. Our party and several RUF asked them, 6 or 10 parties do not want us the threshold in the 1991 Constitution for presidential to move it from 55 to 50 plus.
But the APC and the SLPP...
No, they sit there. That's their own. That's why we are saying, shaping the will of you people, I'm here. I'm saying to resolve identity politics, to mobilize 18 tribes and ethnic groups, let us, the forefathers, Ablai Conte and others who had it 55%, Dr. Peter Tucker, I managed to sit with him in London when I was studying to tell us why they choose 55%. He said, we're a small country. 55%, for now you get first round 55%, it will not be possible easily when the incumbent is gone. Check from 1996, after Tijan Kaba left, the only way Ernest Koroma was a runoff. He didn't get 55, nobody. Berewa did not get. The same, when Ernest was leaving, for His Excellency Brigadier Julius Maada Bio to win, he did not win. It was a runoff. And that is where it forced you to go to our houses and our parties to negotiate a deal, power sharing deal. And then we come in. So you see, one, let us fund our political parties so they can be viable to educate the people at what's going on now. Like, for example...
Because essentially we've seen coalition in Sierra Leone.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, the coalition we do here, which coalition? There's no coalition here. Coalition is pre-coalition. You negotiate, it's cabinet, share power, you negotiate. Look like, for example, take the coalition, the alliance which was formed by the SLPP and NGC. Look at what happened there. You see how NGC is quiet now? I spoke to some of them.
But prior to that, there was...
No, what I'm saying is the NGC did not build coalition. That's not the coalition. That's not it. I do this. I write, I'm a political consultant.
But there was COP.
The coalition is when two parties come together, you understand, I said in 2018, for example, why did NGC not negotiate? It's our power negotiation for vice president. Then you are serious. You get what I'm saying? But that was not a coalition because NGC is not in a ministerial post. They are not vice president. So that's not
isn't COP a coalition? Before this alliance between NGC and the SLPP,
no.
There was the Unity Party, NGC. They had some parties, including the APC, being a part of COP.
No, it was not a coalition. A coalition,
so what then is a coalition?
A coalition you register with PPRC. COP was never registered. It is in the Political Party Act 2002 and 2023. They say a group of political parties can come together to forge a coalition. When you sign your coalition, then you take the agreement to the PPRC, then it is gazetted. Then it becomes a coalition. But COP was never negotiated and then gazetted and deposited to. So that was not. That was an agreement which I mean, COP was a loose agreement. Maybe at some point it was transitioning to form a coalition, but we were not at that coalition stage. And that is why the PPRC went and after them. So, as I say, there are two things in the Constitution and the Act that says either a group of parties can form merger, you can merge and become one political entity, or you can forge a coalition for the purpose of this election coming. Take, for example, NGC now is in trouble. They say, some are saying, we had an alliance or coalition. But for what was the purpose, Fibia? Let's say it was for the election 2023. But now, SLPP have started its own lower level election. So that's not a coalition. So NGC should be preparing now for their elections at lower level.
Yeah, but they actually never said they have a coalition. They only said they had an alliance agreement.
Well, that's the thing. Alliance, coalition is the same. For example, I'm saying you have UDA, that's William Ruto's current president of Kenya. His party is called UDA. Then you have UDM, ODM. They have different political parties. When they come together, they negotiate power sharing. Who becomes the flag bearer? If your party, Fibian is the flag bearer, his party will come the vice president. You cannot have two. But what they do is they find a name, a coalition name. Then all those parties are within that coalition, and that's the branding now. But when they go to nomination, to NEC or INEC, they go with the party. If they go to convention, they vote. If 10 parties come together, they have 50-50 delegates. Then they go to a convention. Now then they nominate the flag bearer. Then after the candidate that came second from another party automatically become the ticket runner. So they do it in that way. But we are yet to go there. That's what I'm saying is for us to have what it means, for example, if you have a candidate whose political parties, the candidate, as I described it, is from the southeast, then obviously the candidates in a coalition, a party that have a leader from the northwest, then becomes the running mate. And that's what I'm talking about. So we can be able to manage that tribal tension and that. But as I say, even our public sector reform and civil service, we need to define clearly the merit-based competition and how we put people there, so that we are stabilized, but not based on nepotism, would I know in company, would I get the scholarships are the same. So that's my problem I'm saying. But as I say, I have better hope that if we have the funding, and especially apart from funding, the role of the media, particularly you people, in shaping the mindset. Because the mindset is not just APC and say, no, there's a part. Let us advocate, say, well, don't look back. For the next 5 or 10 years, let's fund these political parties. South Africa have 127 political parties. The reason they have more political parties because now racial, the same thing. Now racial, they get Indians, they get Albino, they get different people. So they have to form, and their political electoral model system is PR. But it is national proportional representation. Here, even if we want to go to court now, the ECSL missed the formula. They cheated us with a district proportional representation when they use a national PR system. So that's another issue for the day.
But was it prudent to have used the PR system in Sierra Leone during the 2020?
I am a scholar of PR. For South Africa, for you as a political party to have one vote, one member of parliament, is 0.2% out of the total pools nationwide. In 1996, 2002, we used the PR system. But to your question, it was a national PR system. We had about, at the end of the day, what happened was that we managed to get about 6 to 7 political parties in parliament. Do you know why? Because it's an aggregate of all you pool at the 16 political districts. If you measure, pull all the pools together, then you aggregate them, what percentage did NURP get in the national pools? And what percentage SLPP get, APC get? Now, based on the percentage, the number of parliamentary seats, if it is 142, I got 5%, it's 5 over 100 times 135 seats in parliament. But what they did in this case, they said they divided the number of seats in parliament and then as against district proportional representation. Then you determine it by 11.9%. That formula was wrong. I'm a demographer. We can go to the ECOWAS court.
But where were you when all this was going? You just let it slide?
No, we argued. If you, the liaison, external liaison, even in Wellington, I went to, before the polling where we were nominated, I said, this is wrong, this formula. We said it. I said it. They can quote me. I said it. This formula is wrong. Because there are different proportional representation methodology. What we used in 1996, 2002, was national proportional representation. That is the number of parliamentary seats determined by the political boundaries after census. If we say we have 142 constituencies, meaning we have in parliament 142 MPs. So therefore, when under the national proportional representation, if, for example, UP, Madam Femi Claudius Cole's party, scored 10% in the national pools, that's 10 over 100 times 142. But that did not take place. We were doing district proportional and wrongly calculated with, and that's how we ended with 11.9%.
Dr. Sandy, we're out of time, we're rounding off. But if what you're saying now picks momentum, attention of perhaps even some people within the APC, the SLPP, other political parties, and maybe ordinary citizens, how do you proceed from here? I
think the good question, Fabian. We have signed up to Resolution 5 in the Agreement of National Unity. It's an opportunity. Everybody tends to be looking at the Tripartite. That's Resolution 3. Because I also review and look at the gaps in political agreement and peace agreement. So the most important resolution, because for 4, that's why we'll come to. How do we, that is leaving all APC members or who have committed political motivated crime. We want to check the criminal justice system to see how that will happen. But what I'm saying is Resolution 4 say we should establish the Inter-Party Dialogue Committee. And we have developed the terms of reference. If you guys don't have it, remind me, I'll tell David, we will send it back. We need to popularize that. Because once we popularize that, we have defined how political parties are going to dialogue around issues of national interest that can move this country before. And all of them are defined. One is the constitutional review process, 2, the electoral process. There are a lot of, we need to educate that we're all coming. Then number 2, we should leave the 55%. Then APC or SLPP will not have the winner take it all. So that it forces them to negotiate, and that can reduce tribalism and regionalism. When you come to, like for example, take 2018. I'm sure on this podium, I can name her, our deputy ambassador in Guinea. Fatmata Sawane called me during the runoff. And I think Dr. Samra Kamara was here. And by then they went to the house, we talked, these are friends. Cherry Coco is like a younger brother, was a roommate to my brother in Brookfields. So it's a big joy, that's how I call me. We are coming to the house. So they came, we spoke. So consultations were going around. We never declared for anyone, but when Dr. Sarah came to the podium, what you were saying, Fibia, and then he said, I think one of your former colleagues asked him, which candidates are you consulting now in the runoff? That was the runoff. Then he said, you know, for example, I met with Patrick Oduwaya, I met with this, and I met with Dr. Sandy Jonathan, who is a brother, and that. SFP started to call me. They were talking in Monday, saying, you have finished us. You see, that's an identity politics. We did not declare, but the reason is we are negotiating terms with both sides. And then people say, go to Bintimani and declare for us because my umbilical cord is tied to the identity politics. I did not do it. I said, let us negotiate a deal. Investments have gone through. My deputy chairman is Paemo Conte, who is a Poloko. Dr. Conte is there. And you have other tribes, so Mandingos, Creoles are with me. What they tell me is what I do. I'm not going to declare for nobody until my party tells me. At the end of the day, for integrity and credibility, and to nurture the political culture, the joining we are still now. I believe by research, 15 years is when we are matured. I know that 2028, the mindset of the people of Sierra Leone, they are ready. And that you provide the funding, like they do in South Africa, then let's continue to shape the will of the people. Let's inspire the people of Sierra Leone through the new constitutional review process. Even if it takes us 1.5 years to do it now, the referendum should be transparent. We should vote on the referendum questions that we're happy about. Like, for example, do we want to see regional and tribal balance in our media, in our ministries, in our department? Those are the type of things we have to see. So I have the hope that using the Agreement of National Unity, Resolution 5, we translate that so that political parties can create the environment to interact and build relationships with the media, with the, so that we can set our own pattern. But I don't want to see a top-bottom approach of the constitutional review process, which is typical now. It's because we have the Law Reform Commission. That was what it was established after Lomé Accord. It's an independent commission. Roll it out there, get a media unit, get a research unit like we did for DDR Commission in those days. Then the law reform mobilize people. The role of State House and the Attorney General is to advocate for funding, affordable funding, so that inspire everybody to dance with the new constitution, and then we are happy with it, whether to vote yes or no. But a top-bottom approach rather than a bottom-top approach, I have a doubt about that. Secondly, let us have a timeline. Let's go to Parliament in terms of approach and methodology for the constitutional review process. When are we ending it? Let's get a law in terms of step-by-step process. And when are the cutoff point? When are we moving? If there's a roadmap, let's have it. And I think we have the opportunity. I usually tell my friends, I say, go and tell my brother, His Excellency President Mada Bio, that the quick legacy he can leave for Sierra Leone in terms of a new Sierra Leone, facilitate the process of getting a new constitution in the next 2 years. Then that's your beauty.
Dr. Sandy,
anyway, we're done now. Lolo Gasparini says, if I have enough money, I will fully support your political efforts. Your type of politicians are a gem. Too many messages, but thank you all for dropping your messages then. We apologize that we would not be able to read out all those messages. Thank you very much, Dr. Sandy.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Sandy. It's always a pleasure.